Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Warnich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechphilly.com, and as you can see here, now columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I'm having a lot of fun with all three assignments, Rabbi, and my column in the Jewish Press is called Albany Beat, and I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. But our guest today is Adam Zaranko. He's the executive director of the Albany County Land Bank, so we're going to talk about what that means. And welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Let's
Thanks for having me.
start from the beginning. Yeah.
Sure.
At the land bank, you have millions of dollars in the bank over here. It doesn't. That's not what a land bank is.
It's not that type of bank. Our currency is generally real estate, distressed real estate, vacant, tax foreclosed, and abandoned real estate.
Are you a realtor?
I am not a realtor.
You are not a realtor.
No, I'm an urban
you shake
planner.
Your head yes, but you say no.
Well, I'm in the real estate industry, but I am not a licensed real estate agent. I'm an urban planner, and I've done real estate development in previous lives.
So who do you work for, though? Is it a government job or it's a private job?
It's a non-for-profit entity. So we are a not-for-profit public authority. So we are controlled by a board of directors. And the board of directors is appointed by the Albany County Legislature. So we're essentially an extension of the Albany County Legislature, Albany County proper. Although we don't report directly to the county every day, they appoint the majority of our board, and we're governed by that.
Now, you know what's amazing? Now, we talked about zombie homes on this program before. So are those the homes that are in the land bank, among others? But I mean, is that where these abandoned buildings?
We don't have a lot of zombie properties. So there's kind of two buckets of vacant and abandoned properties. There's zombie properties, which are properties that are generally owned by banks, and banks have foreclosed, and they might be vacant properties, but they're still paying taxes on them.
Who they?
The banks.
Okay.
Because they can't sell the property because the value of the real estate isn't high enough to recapture the amount of money the bank wants to recover from the property given their investment. So that property kind of just sits in this perpetuity. It's called a zombie because it's kind of half alive because it's still paying taxes and exists on the tax rolls. The other bucket is tax foreclosed properties, and that's the majority of the properties that come to the land bank. Those are properties that people fail to pay taxes on, the local municipality, and then ultimately the county would foreclose upon the property and take the property in lieu of taxes.
Now, I remember at the Albany County Courthouse, there used to be signs up that say, you know, these are the homes up for public auction.
Sure.
They don't do that anymore because of you?
Correct. So prior to the land bank's existence, and this is true for other areas in the state, we're one of now 19 land banks in the state. We're all relatively new entities. A lot of municipalities used to have regular auctions to recapture the money that they lost from taxes, to make back up the tax revenue for people not paying taxes. Generally, that would result in selling the property to the highest bidder. Sometimes that had less vetting of the bidder, so you would come into situations where someone might be buying 10 properties at once, never having seen the property. There was not a lot of accountability on people fixing up the property, and what would happen is sometimes folks would let the properties fall back into foreclosure, and you would end up going back to that cycle again.
So it wasn't worth it. The whole thing wasn't worth it.
It was having negative effects on communities because it wasn't putting the properties back online in a way that would have a high likelihood of a successful outcome and keep them online, keep them as productive members.
Because the people who would buy the auctioned homes
weren't members of the community.
And wouldn't necessarily, they were buying investment properties, or they were student housing properties or whatever. Now, you know what I noticed when I looked, you have a very nice website, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Very easy to deal with, the type font and everything. I mean, it really is self-explanatory. You just moved recently, so
this week.
You're at this week?
Yeah, we moved we moved last week.
So 69 State Street is where you're located now. You were at 255 Orange. You have to go back on your website and obliterate all the references to 255 Orange, okay?
Yeah, that's helpful.
So you get marks to record.
No, that's good. That's good to do.
I caught 3 spots. So
I'm sure there's more.
But, but focus on that, because you don't want people bothering Paul Stewart or whoever at 255 255 Orange. But, yeah, you're on the fourth floor at 69?
Eighth floor.
Eighth floor
Yep.
of 69 State Street.
Yes, sir.
Now, 69 State is what's on the first level?
Bank of America.
Bank of America.
Yep, yeah.
Now, is there any connection between you and Bank of America that you?
Not yet, but maybe.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get some funding, bump into each other in the hallway, in the
Oh,
elevator.
there you go.
No,
Shake-
it was,
shake the
our
pockets.
lease we enjoyed our time at 255 Orange Street.
Sure.
There's a lot of similar organizations. We developed a lot of partnerships. Our lease was up and we were supposed to move into a different location on Sheridan, and it was delayed and we needed a place to go.
Just say the process. So there's a tax delinquency on a property. So you take it over and then you sell it?
Yeah.
Also, like what Mark was saying, like an auction?
Not like an auction. So we kind of have a three-step process. A property, the county forecloses on a property for non-payment of taxes. Instead of going to auction to the highest bidder, and now generally most properties, residential properties, some mixed use, retail, commercial, but mostly residential, are made available by the legislature, by the county, to the land bank. Step one, we acquire the real estate, we buy it. Usually for $1. In some cases, there's a little more depending on the value of the property, but not at full market value. Because a lot of these properties actually have no market value or negative market value because of the amount of work they need.
They should pay you to take it over. Right?
They do pay us to take it. They do provide us some operating subsidy, so it's a good relationship. What we do is acquire the property. We then look at each one and say, what is it going to take to make this property productive in a way that will decrease the likelihood it goes back into foreclosure?
Right.
What's the best outcome for this parcel or collection of parcels? How can we benefit the community the best? A lot of community members want to see, obviously, it become residential housing. If it's a residential neighborhood, they'd love to see residents go from renting to owning in the neighborhood and become invested in the neighborhood. We can do a great deal, tons of things. We can do demolitions. We can do community gardens. We can partially rehab a property. We can fully rehab a property in some instances, subject to available funding. We can do a lot of things to make the property more attractive or eliminate the harm that vacant property is doing to the adjacent properties, which is important because there's real data behind the negative impact that a vacant building has on your housing value as living next to one.
Sure.
And there's crime, then there's emergencies, there's all types of stuff that's negative that comes along with having a vacant property. In some cases, it's best to just demolish the property and eliminate the vacant
think
rather
so.
than have a half alive property, so to
Right.
speak.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah.
So once we go to step two and
Now,
we've
I'm sorry, it says it takes about $10,000 to demolish a home?
closer to $20,000 to $30,000
To demolish a home?
Yeah,
Properly?
per property.
No,
Yeah,
I mean properly.
yeah.
Because you could demolish it and leave the rubble.
No, to do
But-
it, we follow all guidelines and regulations. A lot of our buildings have asbestos, so they have to be abated. Make sure that it doesn't get put into the air. There's monitoring. There's ways to do it to put it in place, but it's costly.
All right, so you're saying phase two to this, I'm interrupting.
No, that's fine. So step two is we've either improved the property to make it more attractive to someone and reduce the amount of investment they have to make. We might put a new roof on a building, so that way whoever buys it from us doesn't have to make that investment. We might demolish it and sell the lot to a neighbor who wants to make a garden. And step three is the most important step, is we responsibly dispose of real estate. So we don't just sell to the highest bidder like an auction traditionally would. We look at two specific things. One, who is applying to buy the property? We look at, do they have indicators that are likely to result in a foreclosure again? Do they currently owe taxes? Do they have a foreclosure against them? Do they have outstanding housing judgments against them? If they're a landlord, do they have multiple or any code violations? Are they a good actor? Are they going to be a good steward or caretaker of our property? The second thing we look at once we determine that the applicant's going to be a good steward of our property is, what's the plan for the property? What are they proposing to do? And it could come in all different shapes and sizes. It's usually some form of rehabilitation. If it's a building, every building we have generally needs some level of rehab, especially in the cities. Are they able to do it? Do they understand the amount of investment this building needs to come back up? A lot of times people underestimate the investment
Sure
a
they
building
do.
needs. They might say some plywood and some paint, and we're saying it's foundation and the structure. Well, we'll work with them to make sure that no one's set up to fail or get in over their head.
So do these people watch, like, Flip This House and think that
There-
they can do this as
that
easily
show-
within a half-hour show?
In
and-
talking to other land banks, that show has resulted in a lot of people thinking that these type of rehabs are a lot easier than they really are. It's not just a couple commercial breaks and you're good. These are serious projects, and it's not for everyone. And generally, it takes about a year to rehab a building that we have.
You know what struck me when I looked at this list, because you have several hundred homes under your bailiwick here, is that you should have someone who knows how to, like a contractor or a list of contractors that someone could choose who regularly does this, so that they can just come along with the package.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, okay, if you're going to use this house, you pick one of these 5 contractors that we've vetted.
Yeah.
It's because we know that they're going to repair this house properly and do it the right way.
That's a good suggestion, and it's something we should probably look into. The balance there is to make sure we're not playing favorites with some contractors, or maybe it's an
That's
open
why you
way
have
to.
5,
Yeah.
and that's why you let the purchaser, the buyer,
Yeah.
choose from those 5, but you have 5 that are good,
Yeah.
and you don't have to recommend one or the
Yeah.
other.
Here's a list, maybe.
Here's
I
a
think
list.
that other land banks have done that. I mean, we're very new, and
Well, 2 years.
yeah, so
Right.
2 years is not a lot of time in standing up a new organization that has such a massive challenge.
Yeah.
But we're open to all these
But I'm
suggestions.
here to help you.
Yeah, this
That's
is a
it,
good
you know?
suggestion.
That's like had you on
When
the
you
phone.
always keep on saying "we," like who's making that? I mean, Mark's like saying you have to be really a contractor to know, oh, the foundation and oh, the
Yeah.
roof and.
So right now we have 4 full-time staff, and we just brought on board 3 full-time AmeriCorps service members. So we're at about 7 full-time people now, which is a big increase from the 3 we were at.
Well, you only list 2 others besides yourself on the
So
website.
it has to be updated too. It's
Okay.
part of our systemic.
Because I saw that you had an Irvin Ackerman,
Yep, he's our
That's-
newest addition.
and he's your newest addition.
He's our licensed real estate salesperson that we just
Okay,
brought in
because
now.
I see him all over the place on your website.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him on staff, under
Yeah,
staff,
we have to
so-
update the website
Okay,
too. We're in the process of, we have a whole running list of things, which now I'm going to add
Okay.
these to it.
Okay.
That came with the move and changing our address and notifying people and updating our
So
website.
you personally don't do those things? I mean, you're not like a real estate.
We also have Amanda Wyckoff, who is our real estate development and property manager. She's an
Right.
architect by training, so she's really one of the folks on the team that will look at each building, determine generally what type of investment is needed in the building to bring it back up to snuff. And then she's the one that will help us understand when an applicant proposes something to see how closely the applicant's understanding and our understanding are aligned, to make sure that we are all working off the same baseline of like.
And who makes that final decision? Let's say you have 3,
Well-
4 people, saying, well, I could do it, I could do it, I
Yeah.
could do it.
Does it
so-
go before your board?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So
And Charles Toohey is the
he's the board chair.
board
Yeah,
chair, and
yeah.
his father, owned Orange Ford or something?
Yes, I
or-
believe his family, his father owned.
I mean,
Orange
they're wealthy
Ford.
people.
They-
The Tooheys are very wealthy
Yeah,
people.
Charlie
so-
Toohey has been involved in the housing community development industry for over 40
Yeah,
years.
we should say his wife is Alice Green.
Yes,
So, who's a very big activist in
Yeah.
the city, social justice activist.
yeah.
in the
Our
city, so-
our board, we're pretty fortunate, having
Yeah.
been around a few boards in my previous lives, to have a very interested and engaged board,
Mhm.
and it's comprised of people who are really passionate about this work,
Yeah.
and it's not just real estate developers. We do have a real estate developer, but it's people from the community, it's local pastors, it's representatives from other areas. It's
No
a nice
rabbi on
cross
here,
section. We don't have one. We don't have one currently, but
That's another foot on your
That's
list.
right.
Hey, you want a piece of paper? I'll give you some.
that's right. But
Got
Rabbi,
a lot of suggestions.
yeah, to answer
well,
your
full of it.
question,
Let me, just to even be in general, you say Albany County's 2 years old, and then you say there's other land. Is this a newer, because beforehand it was like, oh, throw it out to auction, kind of like what Mark
Yep.
was saying, that was the old way.
Yeah.
We have a lousy property or auction, who wants it, take it,
Yeah.
it gets better. So this is a new trend?
It's
that's what
it's
you're
a
saying?
land banks are a new tool in the toolbox to combat a challenge that's been brewing for decades in all of New England, all the Northeast, kind of the whole Rust Belt corridor. Detroit, Baltimore have vacancy and abandonment at scales that are very humbling. It's hundreds of thousands of buildings in those areas. Land banks have been described as the Swiss Army knife in this kind of fight against blight. And so they're relatively new. New York State passed enabling legislation in 2012, I believe, that allowed the formation of 10 land banks across New York State. They've been used in other areas like Ohio, Cleveland, different parts, Detroit. They're new to New York State. 10 were formed originally. We were one of the last of the first 10. So we were formed in 2014, although the first one came about, I think, in 2012. They recently moved the cap to 20 because land banks have been proven to be very successful in combating these issues. And so there's now 19 land banks about to reach a cap of 20.
These are per county.
So Summer County, so the capital region has 3. Schenectady, which looks at Schenectady and Amsterdam, primarily the cities and a little bit of the area around it. Troy, which focuses primarily on the city of Troy. And ours is a little unique in that it's Albany County, so it's countywide. And we have 533 square miles we cover, 18 municipalities ranging from the city of Albany, which is the state capital, 100,000 people
And
or
to
so.
Voorheesville, which is your
To
smallest.
Voorheesville, to Ravenna, to Queens, and we cover, there's properties and vacant properties in every single, it doesn't recognize borders.
Well, you have 90% of your vacant or abandoned properties close to the river.
That's right.
I mean, you do have one or two, like out in Rensselaerville and one in Voorheesville, one out in Slingerlands, one here and there, out in the better parts of the county.
Yeah.
But all along that river, you have the bulk of your,
Yeah.
not just Albany, but Cohoes, Watervliet.
Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, and it just happened to be like so close to the river.
I don't know the geographic, it's a little bit of coincidence that they're outside of the cities, they're along the river. The fact that most of the properties are concentrated in the cities is not really surprising. You see that in other areas. Newburgh has a lot of vacant properties.
Right.
The cities in our county, Cohoes, Watervliet, and Albany, formed around the water, like many other cities start along the waterfront, heavy industrial and manufacturing uses factories that have evolved over time. But you're right to say that most of our properties are concentrated. Most of our properties, about 80-85% of our portfolio of 250 so acquisitions, are located within 5 neighborhoods in the city of Albany. We call those our focus neighborhoods. And those are Arbor Hill, Sheridan Hollow, West End, West Hill, and the South End. And so if you go to our map online, we have a map at www.albanycountylandbank.org. You can see all of the properties listed as dots, and you can almost see the clusters of density in those neighborhoods. So we use that geographic distribution to guide how we invest our money, our grant money that we have, to solve for these problems. I mean, you can go into those neighborhoods and see, house upon house that's vacant. And it's important to note that not all of those properties are land bank properties. A lot of folks are the perception that every vacant property is a land bank or will be. We don't deal with zombie properties, so you might have a couple sprinkled in a block. Some other might be tax foreclosed or in the process that won't come to the land bank for several years. And some may be land banks, and those should have a sign on them.
What about the X on the buildings?
The X?
The red X.
Yes, good question. So we get a lot of questions about that. The red X is a best practice in the world of first responders that I know they use in New York City. It's kind of a recognized symbol of this building is known to be vacant. So when responding to an emergency, use extra caution before rushing in, because there should be no occupants, although you're never sure. But there may not be a floor. It may not be structurally sound to the point where you need to, use extra caution.
Interesting difference.
Yeah. What it doesn't mean is marked for demolition, or it doesn't have a negative connotation. A lot of people call us and say, "You're going to knock that down." That's
see.
not a bullseye, so to speak. It's just
No, it's an X.
I was going to ask you,
Not a bullseye.
you say you needed money. I would think it's a little bit, your organization should be for profit. I mean, once you get a tax, well, obviously you have to pay the taxes on it, but then you could lift up, another 5,000-10,000. Hey, you get taxes plus.
There's a few things in the model. It's a little counterintuitive, the real estate model and the world of real estate that we work in. We do not make money as an organization. We're truly a nonprofit. Because most of our properties have been vacant for up to a decade before we even get our hands on them, they do have a negative value, and that's why they haven't been picked up by the private market.
But nonprofits can still make a profit.
We can still make a
Legally-
profit.
legally
right.
make a profit.
We're not for profit, we can make a profit. But we use grant money. We have a $2.8 million grant from the New York State Attorney General that he has funded several land banks, many land banks across the state. We have $1.5 million in operating funds from the county. And so we use that to cover our overhead and our staffing. And we use the grant money to make investments in properties that give them enough investment to get them into something where the market will pick them up and take them across the finish line.
So you just started, what, in the beginning of 2016?
I started in April.
April 2016.
Yes, sir.
How many homes, if any, have you renovated and brought back on the tax rolls?
Sure. So
Since April?
to date, we
Because
have...
I can't hold you accountable for when you weren't here. so-
Right. No, it's a good question. We've acquired over 250,
Right.
and actually just filed documents today to bring us to 300.
Okay.
Generally, half of those are lots, half of those are buildings,
Right.
on average. Once we improve them and sell them, we've enabled about 60 or so to go back out into productive use.
Right.
Because of the level of rehab, we only have a handful of the very first full rehab ones that are finally coming online now.
Okay. But I
Because
thought that the buyer was responsible for rehabbing.
the buyers are responsible, but they have a certain time frame where they have to do their rehab. And so a lot of our buyers,
So when you say we have, you're talking about buyers have purchased these buildings, and now they're just coming online from the first of the
Yeah.
ones that they purchased.
yeah, because a lot
It's
of...
not you doing, it's not the
Oh, no,
land bank
good
doing
question.
the...
Yeah, so
Okay,
there's
just wanna
only,
clarify, yeah.
the land bank is only doing right now 4 or 5 full rehabilitations of buildings that we own. And we're doing most of those in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. And basically, we invest about half the cost of the rehab using our grant funds.
Okay.
Habitat for Humanity brings in their sweat equity model,
Mm-hmm.
their volunteer labor, their donated materials, and they vet a home buyer that gets qualified for a mortgage product, and then we were going to, once that building is fully rehabbed, we're going to sell that building to the homeowner.
So you
Those are
pre-qualify someone?
Yes.
To buy the home before you start rehab?
correct. Those are full rehabs that are done under the organization and then transferred into ownership.
Okay.
The majority of our rehabs are basically we partially rehab, which is do some sort of investment strategically to give that building that investment it needs for someone to take it across the finish line. So we might put a new roof on a building. We might put $20,000 into a building and then sell it for $5,000 because that applicant has a sound proposal and access to financing to put $90,000 to put it into that total $120,000 project.
And you don't think the fact that you put in 20,000, you only sold it for 5, that you don't feel you lost 15,000?
No, because because it's tough to quantify the value of putting that building back online outside the dollars. It's the value to the community of having a vacant building back online, a house for people.
And to the city budget for the tax, to taxes coming
yeah.
in. But, a lot of the homes here, like, for example, there's one in Colony. I don't want to pick on the city of Albany all the time. But on Ferrara Avenue.
Okay,
And it says assessed value is $1,100.
right,
It's in the South Colony School District, but there's nothing in here that says asking price.
that's right.
Why don't you feel, and I've seen that where the asking price is not on a lot of your
right.
listings. Why, you're not asking for anything? Or, I'm just teasing.
No, that, in some cases, we're not asking, we're not prescribing the price. Because remember, these properties have been deserted or abandoned for a decade more.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of demand for some of these
But
properties.
some of them, but some of them, like I said, the ones that are scattering, you can get a pretty good deal on
Yep.
some of these homes in Albany
Yep.
County.
Albany County, especially the suburbs, and all types of properties fall into foreclosure. It's not just in the most distressed communities, although it's the most prevalent there. The suburbs,
but
Bethlehem, Colony.
There's one off Crumbkill Road, that I was looking at.
Yeah.
But they seem to be, the square footage of these homes seem to be small. They don't seem to be
Yeah.
3,000 square foot homes.
Generally, they're small. In the city of Albany, they're contextual with the neighborhood. So you have a two-family, typical Albany building where there would be 2 families living in it, or an owner-occupy model, or maybe an investor buys it and makes 2 rentals. There's a lot of different ways to
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
slice
yeah,
it, but
yeah.
there are row homes. At Clinton Avenue, we have many
Sure.
row homes. But yeah, that's kind of a challenge and an opportunity with being countywide, is that we have a big cross-section of housing typologies. We have a couple acres of open space in Queens. Yeah, Rensselaerville, we have open space too. And so we see that as an opportunity where maybe a Troy land bank is limited to certain housing stock because it's a limited footprint. It's also a challenge to deploy staff, and we maintain our properties and we sell them and show them.
I was almost late coming to this taping because I was on the website and I got so engrossed in all these properties and looking at it. Because when you get the brief listing, then you can go in and see for more.
Details,
you could see details. And then you have the map, and you could see where it is in proximity to something else. I mean, it's a phenomenal website when it's interactive like that.
Thank you,
And that's the compliment that I really,
You know,
because I did get engrossed in it, and I thought I was like, whoa, I gotta.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I do it too sometimes. It's go down the rabbit hole of looking at each property. And
You know what I was thinking, Dan? You know, I have kids in Brooklyn, and of course I go to Brooklyn a lot. That's where Lubavitch headquarters are. And, you know, it's just still amazing to me, and I always say I'm 29 years old, but when I started in Lubavitch, it was like the slums. You know, Brooklyn was slums, and now it's built up. So I'm thinking some of these homes was Albany, do you see the kind of people, more the yuppie, you know, they say the young professionals?
Yeah.
You know, maybe like it's, hey, give me a nice place in Albany,
Yeah.
and I'll work it on, and I'll make it to my specifications.
Yeah.
And I'll have a brand, you know, like a semi-new home.
Yeah. We do see.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, we do see. I mean, I was away from Albany for 10 years working downstate, and I've come back and I've watched over time. I've been trying to stay in lockstep of what was happening, but you see a lot more residential happening in the city of Albany and our downtowns, and there's a movement generally in many cities to go back to the cities and move into the cities.
Well,
And
we do see that in downtown Albany with along Pearl Street. And, you know, a block in from Pearl.
Yeah.
But but you know, you have homes like on 1 Wellington Avenue. I know where that is. I mean, that's Frank Comisso's district. That's a nice Italian community there. I mean, I was just surprised to see homes like that in the listings. So I would encourage people to certainly go. Give your website again.
Yeah, www.albanycountylandbank.org.
Okay.
And chances are we are operating in your town, in your municipality. We have or will have a property, at least one in every town in the county.
Right.
And you'll look for our signs, and we're here to help make things
But really,
better.
you'd probably have to be a contractor, wouldn't you? I mean, a guy like that, like me, who put a light bulb, you know, that's about the extent of my, you know, they say, well, come on, Bill, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, not necessarily. It certainly doesn't hurt, and we get a lot of interest from contractors who have a contracting company, can buy materials at cost, can understand the amount of investment, how to do the work, and can do it for low labor costs. We certainly see that that kind of operation coming in our door, and there's a handful of contractors that we work with that can do 1 or 2 properties and have them underway under their belt. We don't limit ourselves to that, because for us the biggest challenge but the best outcome is to get to the home ownership pathway for someone that lives in one of these communities, especially one of our focus communities, that's currently paying more rent than they should be. They want to remain in the community. They want to rehab a property and invest in the community and become homeowners. They also tend to be the folks that need the greatest amount of assistance. So as a land bank, we're not limited to taking the highest offer. We're actually enabled by law to not just take the highest and best offer, which some government always has to go, I think, with the best qualified offer. We look at the best outcome across the board. So what we're really striving to do going into 2017 is line up existing grant programs, existing rehab programs, lead abatement, first-time home buyers assistance. If you want to become a landlord training. There's a wealth. I was actually very impressed when I came back to the Albany area. There's a wealth of supportive programs that are already existing, organizations that predate the land bank that we want to partner with to help someone that isn't a contractor get to home ownership, and we're the right entity to facilitate that connection.
So I have 2 questions, quick questions.
Sure.
Quick answers, I hope. But are you a quasi-public private organization? I mean, because you get private funding also, or is it
We
just-
are a 501c
I know,
charity. We
yeah,
can
right.
take donations. We have not received private funding to date. All of
Okay.
our funding has come from the state attorney general, the county, and we
Right,
have
but
some
coming
programmatic
from
funds.
the
small.
New York City departments that you've come from, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
when
yeah.
I say a
Yeah.
quasi-public-private entity.
Yeah.
Are you looking to that direction?
We were actively engaged in the Breathing Lights public art program, which was
Right,
funded by
sure.
the Bloomberg Arts Program.
Oh, that's right,
And so
yeah.
I've attended lots of roundtables and meetings with,
Okay.
with possible donors. and-
Speaking of roundtables, Board of Directors meetings are open to the public?
Yes, sir.
And you meet, well, the last one you had was on November 15th.
Yep.
Again, you got to update the website with a December board meeting. I don't know when that is, but
I know what my morning's
it-
going to look like
is
tomorrow.
it the second, is it the second Tuesday or the third
It's
Tuesday?
the third Tuesday of every
Every
month it
month,
meets.
third
Yep,
Tuesday
at
of every
200 Henry Johnson Boulevard upstairs
Okay.
in the second floor conference.
And I want people to know that you're a very talented artist. Let's see if I could get a shot of this. Can we get a, there you go. This is a cartoon that Adam submitted when he was working for New York City.
It was a caption contest. I can't take credit for drawing it, but
Oh, you didn't, okay. Well,
I gave the caption.
Well, the caption reads, "The exact moment when clerical associate Johnson realized that moonlighting as a zookeeper may indeed be a conflict of interest." And you have the tiger on top of the file cabinet chained to the wall, and the file clerk trying to get something out of here, and I presume the cat's trying to keep him away from that. So
I won that one at least.
you won
but-
that. So congratulations on that, even though it was a while ago. But
Thank you.
keep up your creative aspects.
The main thing
you
is,
know.
Adam, that you keep, it's good for the people, like you're putting that people into homes
Yep.
that haven't been uninhabitable, and
Yeah.
therefore,
Yeah.
you're doing great service to the community.
Thank
So
you.
keep going with good success.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
continued
appreciate that.
success, absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.